Welcome to Theme Weavers, your weekly wisdom for weaving yoga themes into your classes to inspire your students. I'm your host, Heidi Kasner. Let's get started. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Theme Weavers podcast. This is part 3 of a little short series that I've been sharing from the retreat that I've been preparing to teach. In episode 104, we talked about helping students arrive, working with a busy mind, and guiding attention into the present moment. Last week in episode 105, we explored what happens next, how we begin to reconnect to ourselves once things get quiet. And today, we're going to talk about the next layer, renewal. Because once we've arrived and once we've started to reconnect, the question becomes, now what? There's often this assumption that once we become aware, once we notice our patterns, our habits, our tendencies, that things will just naturally change. But awareness alone does not create transformation. It creates possibility. And I'll be honest, this is something I still work with all of the time. There are moments where I become aware of a pattern, and my first instinct is to try to fix it right away, to do more, try harder, figure it out. And what I've noticed is that the more I push, the more resistance I actually create. And that's what makes this teaching so powerful, because it reminds us that change doesn't come from pressure. It comes from relationship. And what we do with that possibility, that's where the concept of renewal comes in. In the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali gives us a really powerful framework for this. 2 concepts that work together that you hear me talk about on the podcast over the years, Abhyasa and Vairagya. Abhyasa is intentional effort, the practice, the showing up, the repetition. Vairagya is letting go, non-attachment, the release of control over the outcome. And what I love about this pairing is that neither one works very well without the other. Because if we only have effort, we grip, we force, we try to control. And if we only have surrender, we drift, we disconnect, and don't take action. But when they come together, that's where change actually becomes sustainable. Another way to think about this is Abhyasa is how we stay engaged. Vairagya is how we stay free. And we need both. Because effort without release becomes tension. And release without effort becomes disconnection. And this is where I think renewal gets misunderstood. Renewal is not about becoming a completely different person. It's not about fixing everything all at once. It's about making small intentional shifts and allowing those shifts to take root over time. And as teachers, this is such an important distinction. So how do we actually teach this then? I think of it in 3 simple ways. First, we name what's happening. We normalize the urge to fix or rush change. Second, we offer a point of choice, not to do this perfectly, but notice and choose how you respond. And third, we repeat that balance throughout the practice, effort and release, again and again. Because once students start to reconnect to themselves, there can sometimes be this subtle pressure that shows up. This pressure like, I should be different now, or I should be better at this, or I should have figured this out already. The shoulds, right? And that's where we can gently guide them back. Since we talked about this relatively recently, you could even look at this through the lens of the kleshas, that grasping, that wanting things to be different right now, because that's part of the human experience. And the practice isn't to eliminate that, it's to notice it and choose how we relate to it. You might offer something like, notice what you're working with and choose how you want to respond. Or stay with the effort and let go of needing it to look a certain way. Because renewal isn't about getting it right. It's about staying in relationship with the practice. From a physical perspective, this might look like building toward a peak pose like sugarcane, where there's both effort and openness. You need engagement to support the shape, but you also need space to allow the body to move there. If you force it, it doesn't work. If you don't engage, it doesn't work. And what's interesting is your body will tell you immediately, not as a judgment, but as feedback. And that's the kind of awareness that we're building. Not awareness that criticizes, but awareness that informs. It's the balance, and that balance is the practice, not just in the pose, but in how we approach ourselves. I think this is where yoga becomes something that extends beyond the mat, because renewal isn't just about what happens in a 60-minute class or a weekend retreat. It's about how we begin to relate to our habits, our patterns, our choices. Can we notice what's there? Take a small step forward and let go of needing immediate results. Can we pause before reacting? Can we stay with something when it feels uncomfortable instead of immediately trying to change it? That's renewal. Not in big dramatic moments, but in small, consistent choices. So if you take anything at all from this episode, let it be this. Transformation doesn't come from forcing change. It comes from consistent effort paired with a willingness to let go. It comes from showing up, paying attention, and allowing change to unfold over time with effort and with release. So the next time that you're teaching or practicing, ask yourself, where am I inviting effort? And where am I inviting release? Because renewal lives in that space between the two. And I'll just say this, renewal doesn't always feel dramatic, everybody. It really doesn't. Sometimes it looks like choosing to stay. Sometimes it looks like doing the same thing with a little bit more awareness. And sometimes it looks like letting go of something that you've been holding on to for a long time. And all of that counts. So if this last of the 3-part series, these shorter form episodes resonated with you, please share it with another yoga teacher who might need this reminder. And if you've been enjoying this series, I would love for you to follow along and leave a review. It really does help more teachers find the podcast and this work. I'll be back next week with a special guest, and then we will be back to our regularly scheduled theme programming, which is not crazy long, but longer form than these. I just was running out of time and needed to put something out for you real quick and give you a taste of what's happening on the retreat. So I promise we'll be back to our normal programming. Hopefully by May is my goal. I have my retreat this weekend, and then I'm here the following week. And then I'm in London for a week following that with my family for vacation week. This is like a big trip to celebrate, us being able to do things like this with my son. And then I'll be back to regularly scheduled planning and life, and hopefully in a really much warmer place, because it's April, but it's still snowing in Massachusetts. I don't understand. But I hope you enjoyed this little sneak peek into my retreat class planning, and I will let you know soon how it all came together. Thank you for being here, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next week with a new theme and inspiration to bring to your yoga practice and your teaching. See you next time.